Well, we are so excited to have you here today with us, Cathie, leader of Gather Women, speaker, author, mentor, one of my inspirations in Canada. Thank you for joining me today.
It's such a privilege to be with you, Lori. Thanks.
Well, I'm excited not only to talk to you, Cathie, because we know that we both share the same heart across our nation for raising up women and to have a voice. And then you've written this fabulous, fabulous book, which I loved from beginning to end, Brave Women, Bold Moves. Tell me why this book and why now, Cathie?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't want to write this book, and I didn't want to write it now. I wanted to write a book on leadership, a book that would hit the New York Times bestseller, because when you write about women, it's such a specific market. But I realized that the whole trajectory of my life had been pivoted because of the things I read in scripture about brave women in the Bible. And again, brave women in the Bible is not like a current and now topic, but because it had impacted me so deeply from the inside out, I felt that this was the message I was preaching, I was teaching. I couldn't stop talking about it, and I knew that it just had to be written.
Well, I just would confirm that in your life because in the times that we've spent together, it just flows out of you. This is a passion that God's given you, and it's a much needed voice. Why, when you say in your book, why did you choose the question, where did bravery get you? Like, why did you choose that question?
Well, because I wanted to bring a little bit of a different perspective on that word. It's such a huge word. Everybody's using it, which is another reason why I didn't want to actually use that word in my title, but it seemed to be the way to go because there's bravery for bravery's sake, just to be seen as being brave. So you can climb Mount Kilimanjaro or jump out of an airplane and say, hey, that was a brave thing, but it doesn't really lead to something else. And it may not have been perpetuated by anything that came before. Or there's bravery just to survive. And we know so many brave women in this nation and beyond that are doing what they just need to do every day just to survive. Though, is the kind of bravery that is really motivated and propelled by a sense of call, by a sense of obedience, by a sense that I don't want to do this thing. I'm not this girl. I'm not that brave, but I can't not do it. This is my moment.
Well, I hear you on that. You know, one of my favorite sayings is do it afraid, right?
Right.
And so we've had this conversation, you and I, that it's about obedience. I love this quote. I mean, there were so many. I had to, in our short time, I had to pick some of my favorites. But I love when you say, I truly believe that true bravery is from love, for love, and activated by obedience. The desire to serve God and serve others is the catalyst to our bold moves, whatever season we are in and whatever circumstances we find ourselves. Does that not sum up in many ways your definition of what you're saying bravery is?
Yeah, because I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, whether that means anything to anybody or not. But I like to see the bigger picture. And really, our bravery only comes from the bravery of God the Father, who risked everything by creating a garden and putting man and women in there and saying, it's your free will to love me back or not. He risked everything. That was the bravest thing. And of course, they chose otherwise, but he followed them out of the garden. And then we find Jesus showing up on the scene. Again, the bravest move, like, I'm going to send my son. Who does that? And we put him in our garden, the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's okay with it. And he says, it's your will, you're humans, but I'm here because of love. And you were created from love. And I'm always going to go with you because of love. And we're going to end together all with love. And so it has to be from love. That's the only motive that will actually take you from the beginning through the middle to the end.
Right. Right. It's not about being a hero. It is about being a servant, really, as we see biblically. What are the biblical misconceptions or just what are the misconceptions about women? And I know the angst let's get really honest here about women in leadership in churches or ministries. We've had an angst about that where, for many generations, and so what is the misconceptions we think we have about women?
Yeah, meek, weak, submissive. And, depending on how you're raised theologically or even in your culture, you will feel that that is God honoring, because somewhere along your history, you've received messages about that's the woman's role or that's the female role. And I really wanted to honor my European heritage, my husband, the way I was raised in the Baptist church. But actually, come on, when you read the Bible, anything but weak, meek, and submissive. It's like in moments where destiny is changed forever by Moses' mother actually just putting him in alligator infested waters in the Nile River, but strategically showing leadership and saying, I can't be like that other Hebrew women, because there's something about my son, there's something about this moment that is meant to fulfill prophecy and release the people from under this slavery. And so I want to be that woman. I want to be the Mary that says yes as a virgin to giving birth. I want to be Sarah, who waits 90 years to see the promise fulfilled of the inheritance of yeah, like as many as the stars will be her children.
Right.
I want to be that woman, and that's the woman depicted in the Bible. And so if that is what it is, what does that mean to me? And I really see the arrow from Eve all the way through to my life. And I believe that I need to keep on that path, because there is an arrow going from my life to the girls that are following after.
I really resonate with what you're saying, Cathie, how you've brought out the biblical stories of women to illustrate God's heart towards women. How has this writing of this book transformed you as a woman and a woman who leads?
Well, I think it made me more confident to be visible and actually raise my voice, because I only heard about the lives of these women in Sunday school rooms with flannel graph. I never heard it as a narrative from the pulpit. And I realized that I need to occupy some of that space to share the story of women and the importance of women in the history of God and in the story moving forward. And so it totally made me brave, just out of obedience, whether I was too old, wrong place, wrong woman, wrong time. I realized none of the women in the Bible were at the right place, right age, right place, right time. But God said, I'm calling you. Will you say yes? And so that's my story. I just said yes. I didn't stop to think whether, it should be me, it should be somebody else. I need to occupy a space, and I need to actually model for the generations to come that their yes is really vitally important.
And when you say yes, and I'm so with you on this. We're not saying that you have to be a speaker on a stage or you have to run a ministry, are we? Like, saying yes can be the day-to-day decisions to step up and be brave in your home environment as a friend. What's your dream for the nation, Cathie? What's your dream for the church and for women across our nation?
The dream is that women would own their birthright gifts, would understand that their days are actually ordained for them. There is a purpose and a promise to them, and that they would have the courage, the bravery out of obedience to own their influence in their spheres, in their spaces, in their home, in their churches, in their communities. Because as we see in the Old Testament and New Testament, when women stepped out and said yes, they were the first evangelists. They created new movements. They made things happen that were hugely important to the story of God, moving it forward. And I believe that we actually can be culture shapers, culture changers, and not be so conformed by all of the arrows coming into us, especially in this season, but actually transform with the arrows out and be more on the offensive and take bold steps. We just have to believe that that's what we were made for.
I'm with you, sister. And just a reminder, in your book, you talk about we're better together. This is about men and women together, operating in the gifts and the way that God made both of us. So I thank you for your book. Cathie, this book can be found anywhere books are sold, but we know that if they want a signed copy, they're to go to CathieOstapchuk.com. And I thank you for your leadership, Cathie, in our nation. We've just enjoyed this past weekend Gather Women Conference. I loved hearing from the speakers, and I know that it's not too late. We can still get a ticket. So check check out 700club.ca. We'll direct you to that information so that you can hear voices of women across the nation. Thank you, Cathie, for what you're doing. Keep leading. I'm cheering you on. I'm with you. Well, up next, Octavia is a brave story that you don't want to miss.